Cachamaniacs.
GeoGearHeads.
Well, you probably noticed it, but we're back for episode 168 of the GeoGearHeads. Daryl W4, DeBear, and myself will be talking on this show about mega events and how to attend them properly. Because, you know, if you're not attending them properly, there's really no reason to go. But first, we need to get to into that question we asked last week for this week's show. So, Daryl, I completely missed it, but I understand this question is worthy of me. You know, I am the bad cop.
It was a really tricky one, especially because a couple of the GeoGearheads found a loophole I'd missed when I had written up this question.
Well, you know, if people are going to find loopholes, it's GeoGearheads. So the question that Land Monkey asked, and by the way, I think he did a great job last week. I don't know. Is there any sort of contract I have here? Can I be replaced?
Oh, you could be replaced, but I don't know that he wants to pay the fee.
Oh, okay. Whew. The check's in the mail, by the way.
Okay, good.
So the question Land Monkey asked was, what was the minimum number of people required to log an event to achieve mega status on geocaching.com? Sounds simple enough, but the answer? That wasn't so simple.
No, I expected it to be a little tricky after reading the description in the guidelines. The text reads, events must surpass 500 attendees to qualify for mega status, which means not 500, but rather 501 logs would be required. But, Dave, there was another option that I had missed.
Like I'm sure happened to many others, I guessed at the answer based on the common perception that mega events are 500 people. And when I got it wrong, I looked up the mega event classification doc on the Groundspeak Help Center, and I found this little gem in section 11, which reads, I quote, "New events will be required to surpass 500 will attend logs before they are considered for mega event status. Events with history will be evaluated based on a minimum of 300 attended logs from the previous year, as well as a combination of the current year's will attend logs and factors such as location, history, and date." So I, like some of the other GeoGearheads, thought that 300 would be the right answer, since that's lower than either 500 or 501.
Yeah, so we did also take the 300 as a right answer. I thought this would be a little bit more challenging, but it seems to point out just how easily you can get confused by the guidelines over at geocaching.com. We had the most entries this week for any of our contests so far this year, and I dropped everyone with 300, 500, or 501 into that drawing. And this week we're remembering Pi Day by giving away a Pi Day coin from coinsandpins.com to one of those 31 GeoGearheads who emailed us any of those three answers. Sadly for you, Dave, you didn't win, but that's good news for the other 30 GeoGearheads. Would you care to share the screen name for that winner?
Certainly. The winner was Buffalo Bob.
Congratulations, Buffalo Bob. Now, Daryl, since I wasn't here last week, I could have entered, couldn't I?
Well, no, because you have access to that doc that has all the answers.
Bummer. Foiled again. So, Buffalo Bob, since I can't win the coin, well, you know, actually, if Buffalo Bob doesn't do exactly what I'm going to tell him to do, I may be able to get that coin after all. So, Buffalo Bob, what you need to do is make sure you email your mailing address. That's your physical house, post office box, something. You know, something where the postman delivers to. Email us that address to geogearheads@cachamaniacs.com by March 4th to claim your Pi Day coin from coinsandpins.com. And thanks to all 31, it would have been 32 if Daryl would have let me in, of you who played this week. And coinsandpins.com is donating. Thank you to coinsandpins.com for donating that really cool prize. See, I get off on my own, and I don't know where to go sometimes, Daryl. So, now, we also heard from G Slink and Slinky Mama, isn't that a great name, Slinky Mama, via email about their Pi Day. Since you were talking about geo tours in the patron extra from last week, I thought I'd pass along this. I'm the cache owner for all the caches at one of our larger parks. I archived all the old ones and created a series of caches around the theme, around a theme, and set an event the morning I had them published. We gave away related Viking geocoins to fit the theme as well. Not a Geo Tour or Power Trail or Geo Trail, but I would call it a Geo Series. I'd agree with that. He sent us a link to the bookmark list for the series, the Vikings of Greenham. So, guys, what do you think? You think there should be a new Geo series?
I think maybe, but I do really love when there are a series of caches like this based on a theme. It's one reason why I like multis and why I like geotrails is that you can really immerse yourself into an idea or a storyline or an area and just spend a lot of time in that for an extended period of time. And you get much more out of it than just a standalone cache that may have that theme. It's kind of like a multi in a way, but with its you get more found logs, first of all, so more smileys. And there's no set order you necessarily have to do them in, so you're kind of flexible which way to go. But you still get that kind of immersive, long-term adventure experience.
Yeah, I love the series like this as well. We just tend to call them cache series around here. And they could be anything from something that, solve all these, or find all these to get the clues to find the final puzzle cache, or just do them all. I really like the idea of that Viking coin. But, man, that's probably going to be a ton of cash out of pocket.
It could be, yeah. But I like that idea. I have to agree with DeBear, and, I don't do that often, but I am agreeing with you this time. I like that you don't have to do them in order. It's not necessarily a trail or, but a series. We have one here in town called the Orkin Nanos. Mork from Ork. Anyway, they're itty bitty. Well, they're nanos, but he claims them as spaceships. They've landed from outer space, and they're all different colors, and you have to go around and find them. But the one series I did, and this one you wanted to do in order, just because it gave you a history of what was going on. And if I had thought of this ahead of time, I would have had the GC number. But back in Washington State history, there was a man who apparently, or who allegedly, killed the sheriff, and he went into the woods and hid. And they sent a large posse after him and chased him from point to point. And there's a series of caches that are hidden near where he was hiding out, or had an event with that posse or lawman. So it was really a very interesting series, and reading the descriptions was well worth the price of admission on that one. So, but it was historical and a cache series at the same time.
Excellent. I do love that kind of stuff because it does give you all that history information. It's why I like the virtual caches before they disappeared, and if you have the room to put a cache, it's an even better way to do it, because that way you get the best of both worlds. But we also did hear from Wet Coaster that a battle cache game was held in Alberta last year, and that they're doing it again this year. The website is albertabattlecache.ca for anyone that's interested in checking that out, and they do have information about how it works there.
Yeah, I thought that was when I heard that from last week's episode. I think it was a randomized episode from last week. We mentioned that they did it in New Brunswick, I believe, or somewhere in the Maritime provinces. I thought it was a fantastically interesting idea, and I would love it to happen around here, so I could participate in it.
So, do you actually have to fight for the cache? Because that would make it more interesting.
2 cachers enter, 1 cacher leaves.
Yeah, well, or kind of just a cage match, 50 cachers enter, only 1 leaves.
Hunger Games of caching.
Oh, Hunger Games of caching. There we go.
Well, I think Wet Coaster needs to actually send us a video or something so that we can check it out.
That's one way to thin out the caching ranks in the area, isn't it? May not be the way you actually want to do it, though. Well, we also heard this week from one of our UK patrons Daryl, that you mispronounced Norfolk last week. How did you pronounce it last week?
Norfolk.
Norfolk? Okay. I'd say Norfolk. Well,
it was
actually,
right after I had actually corrected his pronunciation of Michigan, which I might add he had asked for on the show. And I was told, though, that it doesn't. You don't pronounce the L. But in my defense, I'm a silly American prone to butchering words, and I could swear that I've heard Norfolk, Virginia, many times. I'll concede that he's right, just on the grounds that we Americans do tend to mispronounce words. So my apologies for that and any confusion that it might have caused.
Well, DeBear, how do you pronounce that word?
Norfolk.
Yeah. See, now that's a little more.
But I'm not
sure.
sure.
Take this the wrong way. A little more southern.
Yeah, well, when I came across this, I was like, I actually put a comment in the show notes. I wonder how it compares the American to the Canadian versus the British, and how the three relate. Because this came up because there's a travel bug race that's going to Norfolk, Ontario, Norfolk, Virginia, and Norfolk in the U.S. But then I realized I'm not sure if I really know it from Canada or from references to the U.S. military base. Or the Navy base in Norfolk, Virginia, based on watching like NCIS and stuff like that. So I can't really. I'm probably more influenced by the American TV shows that mention it than anything else.
Well, and Daryl, since you are a Michigander, and now the Michiganders I knew, and I just want to let you know I'm wearing my Ohio State shirt today, so this is some bias. They tend to put R's in words that didn't have them, like Warsh. W-A-R-S-H. So adding letters to words is something that just Michiganders do. I don't know how else to say it.
Well, it's not just Michiganders.
Oh,
but
okay.
Yes, Michiganders do have the tendency to drop in some words. Or some letters.
Some letters. Well, and the folks in Boston, they tend to drop the R's. So, throughout the country, we're getting the right number of letters in our words. So, with that little grammar lesson out of the way, let's move on to the meat of today's show and the reason we invited DeBear to join us, not just for his pronunciation skills. Today, we're going to share some of the things that geocachers need to consider when attending mega events. This is going to be tips for all level of mega event attendees. But let's start by mentioning your article from last March, was it, Dave?
Actually, it was March 4th, 2014. So yes, last year. There was an article I wrote on my blog, and I'm sure it'll be punted in the show notes so people have a link to it. And I wrote it not really for mega events, but I was at a local state event which had about 200 participants in it, and there was some feedback given in the local forums afterwards about some issues that some newer cachers had when they attended the event. And I realized that a lot of the problems could have been kind of solved if they were a little bit more prepared to what to expect for going to a large event. Mm-hmm. So I wrote up my thoughts in the article to kind of be that guide for new participants. Because sometimes mega events, they're very complex beasts, and there's a lot going on, and there's not necessarily all of the guidance, the obviousness of what you need to do, where to go, how to get registered, where do you start, where do certain things happen, all that type of stuff. It can be kind of daunting. So the article I wrote kind of steps through some of those and hopefully helps prepare the newer cachers to kind of understand how to get the most out of the mega event that they attend.
Yeah, there is a lot of great information in there. Stuff like being an active participant, being informed, the food and parking considerations. And that's actually something I kind of wanted to talk about because it is something that you don't necessarily think about so much, and you don't even really know the right answer to until you're there, is what is the food situation going to be like, and how is the parking going to be? Because sometimes parking, you have to pretty much go and stay if you want to do anything, because traffic is so terrible getting in and out of the venue that you do have to stay. Other times, people go off-site and go caching, and That's pretty much it. So there's some considerations there. And the food, we've talked about this on some of the other shows, where you want at a lot of these mega events to take part in their food because it's the only thing around.
Yeah, that's. So go ahead, Chris.
Sorry, I muted myself. And that could be the only thing around for miles. I mean, we're not just talking convenience, we have to drive a mile, but we could have to drive 10, 15 miles before you're going to find any sort of convenient food.
Right,
unless you're looking at roadkill.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of mega events, just for controlling numbers, they'll sell tickets for the food, and those tickets are not available at the event because they needed a couple weeks of preparation time.
Mm-hmm.
But typically, with most mega events that I've ever been to, this information is either in the event listing on geocaching.com, or they often have other websites like GeoWoodstock is geowoodstock.com, GoingCaching is goingcaching.com, and those websites tend to have a lot more information, and it also has the place where you can purchase those meal tickets if you need to, or it has information on parking. And when it comes to things like parking, a lot of times a great way to look is just to pop up the event location on Google Earth or a satellite view and just see if there's parking lots nearby. Because if there's not, then there might be some sort of parking situation. I recall, like in GeoWoodstock 11 in Florida, they actually had busing systems, so parking was off-site, and I think the busing was free. It was just a matter of just hopping on and going to the event. But it was a lot more complicated than just parking somewhere and getting out and being at the event.
Yeah, which is one of those situations where you're probably not going to want to leave. And then there's other events like MOGA where it's all about the games that go on during the event, so you're probably not going to be leaving for that.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes those events require pre-registration. One example, I've never been to MOGA, although it's on my list, but I went to Going Caching last year, and they had these series of caches that you didn't have to sign up for ahead of time, but to really kind of have the time to complete these caches in a timely manner. And at the end of it, if you completed everything, you got a geocoin, so it was well worth your time, other than the fact that the caches themselves were fairly impressive. Was that you had to show up to a event the day before to get a card, which was like a passport to use to keep track of all the other things you found. You could do it the day of as well, but you wouldn't really have time to finish them all. But knowing that information gave you the knowledge that you needed and the time to complete those caches. Because some mega events, typically when you go to a mega event, there's one day where it's the mega event. Usually it's a Saturday. And that's when kind of like, the mega event is and where stuff happens. But almost every mega event I've been to has surrounding events that go on days before and sometimes days afterwards. And kind of knowing what those are, especially if you have time to show up to those. I mean, sometimes people, if you don't have time, showing up to the mega event will get you something. But for a lot of these events, they're really multi-day things, and each of those other things are other event listings. Like last year, Going Caching, I think, had like 11 different events from the Wednesday evening to the Sunday morning, and each of them, and some of them were related to certain caches that were put out specifically for the event. So knowing what all that, if you just kind of went in cold, you would get lost very quickly, and you would not get. You'd still enjoy yourself, but you would not get the level of enjoyment that is kind of the opportunity is there for you to have.
Well, you mentioned those websites for the actual events, and that is a great place to go because there's so much more information there than they can put on a geocache listing. You have that information that isn't allowed, like commercial references, links to the site, so if you want to go and book a hotel, that information's there. And many times they'll have the forums and such. But what I do want to really hit on that you mentioned are those events the days before, because many, not all, but many of the mega events will allow you to do your registration at an event beforehand, and I really think that is the best way to do it. If you can, do that. Avoid the registration at the event itself, because that's going to take a lot longer and cut into any enjoyment you might have of that event because you're spending all your time in a line.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of these events, like Geo Woodstock this year, I'm not sure if they're going to go Giga or not, but if they do, that's 5,000 people. If they all show up and trying to go through a line of 3 or 4 people handing out registration packets, that's going to take a while. Not to mention, if you can hit the events before, you get another smiley. It's a more relaxed environment. I remember the last time we were at Geo Woodstock last year, you, me, and Chris ended up doing the lab caches right after the registration event on the Friday. So it was a much more relaxed environment, and it kind of just another way I like to think of it is kind of like eases you into like being in event mode for the time. It's not just if you're like me, who's kind of somewhat antisocial. I think that qualifies for a lot of cachers just because we tend to have the geeky nature. It's kind of nice to kind of be eased into massive social events and going to those other events, which are usually less attended. Also, kind of makes it easier just to kind of be into the mode where large crowds are awesome instead of frightening.
Yeah, agree. And it's wonderful being able to do that because sometimes you'll make great friends during those events that you can go out caching with that day and hopefully keep in touch with after.
But see, I think standing in line forces you to become friends with the people in front and behind you.
Sometimes it does, but many times when I've done that, it's the family in front and behind that's too preoccupied with the kid in the stroller, or
and they keep
having their own little argument, or.
No, I agree. I'm just giving you guys a hard time, but I really like, as you said, going early and getting the registration out of the way. Maybe you're dealing with a third of the amount of people than you are the day of the event, but that means you can jump right in and get things going at the event instead of waiting in line. So
yeah, and often those registration packets have things like lists of where the lab caches are, or they'll have a paper schedule of the things that are going to go on the next day, so you can be prepared. I remember going to Geo Woodstock 10, I believe it was, and the previous Geo Woodstock, which was my first mega event, they had the group photo in like the last kind of thing at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I was fully prepared for the group photo to be the last thing, but it was one of the first things. If I didn't notice that, I would have missed it. Those types of things that kind of you may not want to miss during the day, and if you don't know where they are, you're just not going to show up at the right point in time. I want to back up a bit when I said the kind of antisocial thing, which I fully admit that I am.
You were talking about me.
Okay, sure. But another thing I think is important to realize when you go to events is that when you show up as an event as a geocacher, you automatically are given permission to participate in everything that goes on. I think one of the problems that I saw that prompted me to this was the person was kind of expected to kind of be invited, to do whatever the activities were. And I think it's very important to remember. I like to use the analogy of a tribe. You're all members of the same geocaching tribe. We're all in it together. We're all there for a very, very specific purpose, which is enjoying geocaching with people, and that gives you the freedom to join in on whatever events are going on. I found it also kind of gave me the kind of social freedom to kind of join in with other groups, saying like, if you're going out for a cache, do you mind joining you for finding this cache type of thing, which I typically wouldn't do. That's not my comfort zone. But because you're there and you're among cachers, and it's kind of the point is to be together, it gives you that freedom to kind of open yourself up to that type of thing. And you should never wait to be asked to do something at an event. Usually the volunteers at events want you to be enjoy yourself, and they will help you as much as they possibly can, but they are usually vastly outnumbered, and they are there's just not as many of them to go around. So if you can find a volunteer and ask them what to do, they'll more than help you. But you can't expect somebody to be there to show you where to go. So it's really on yourself to make that happen. And the best way to do that is to, one, feel the freedom to be informed what's going on, and what I call being an active participant, which is just assuming that you can do anything that's going on.
That's a really good point, Dave. And one of the things that I like to do at those events is go to a cache. There's always nearby cache. Go there. You're going to have a large group of people that are already there getting the cache because they're just going to hand you the log. But when some people walk off, say, "Hey, do you mind if I join you?" And just follow them if you're not there with the group, obviously. But I think that's and they're cachers. We're all doing the same thing. We're all part of one big family. You said it well.
Yeah, and you never know who's going to be there. These mega events, especially like the Geo Woodstocks, they're attended by people from all over the world. I remember the Geo Woodstock in Indiana, Geo Woodstock 10. I believe the Sunday had a flash mob at the original Geo Woodstock location, which was just across the river in Louisville, Kentucky. And while we showed up a bit early, and while I was waiting, I ended up caching with 2 cachers from Germany, and I believe a cacher from England, and another cacher from the U.S. So we had this international group of cachers who would, never really run across paths ever,
Exactly.
Walking around this park, finding a bunch of geocaches and getting to know each other. It was actually a great deal of fun.
And I want to also bring up that it is a good idea to volunteer at these events. Again, you get to experience a different side of it, but you also make more new contacts when you're volunteering at these events and giving something back. But it is a great experience that I'd like to have at some point, but I always end up working for the shows and whatnot, so never have a chance to volunteer really.
Yeah, and you make a free T-shirt.
You may get a free T-shirt. Yeah, the Going Caching crew got a path tag. And the volunteering often isn't a lot, and sometimes you don't have to do it the day of. I've been to some events where the volunteering was basically just kind of being a security guard, standing around the event for certain parts of the night, just so evil people wouldn't come and mess things up, that type of stuff, or helping to set up events, helping to tear down. So volunteering does not necessarily mean that you're going to be missing out on anything per se, because you can kind of control when that's going to happen. And if you're like my wife, who is incredibly a social person, volunteering to help with the registration desk, or helping hand out swag, or man the logbook, or any of those types of things, pretty much guarantees that you're going to meet most of the cachers that go to that event. So depending on how, whether what area of social interaction you're comfortable with, volunteering is a great way to hit one of those. And as well, like Daryl said, it's a nice way to give back to the event.
Let's change gears pretty abruptly, actually, because I do want to talk a little bit about prepping. And one of the things that you really need to consider is the lack of connectivity at these mega events typically. And it's not necessarily that that area doesn't have data service or phone service. These are typically areas that aren't used to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people descending on it, all wanting to use those services at the same time. So when you get there, it's kind of like being in that crowded football stadium when you want to try to send out that tweet or check your Facebook status, whatever that might be. You're just not going to get a whole lot of data going through. And as cachers, we're more used to being able to do that with a lot more data, downloading things like the maps and the cache details. So this is one of those situations where it is really critical that you prepare and have all of the caches and any of the information that you need loaded onto your phone, onto your tablet, onto your GPS. Make sure that it's there before you leave the hotel or the house or wherever, so that you know you have it. Not to mention, we saw downtime on geocaching.com this weekend during the Big Pi Day event. If you have a mega event, could be another one of those big times when geocaching.com isn't accessible for a little while.
Absolutely. It also helps. Whenever I leave the house, I assume that I'm never going to have connectivity because I live in the mountains, and it's hit and miss no matter where you go. So I always recommend that assume you're never going to have connectivity when you go for a geocaching event. But it's also useful when you're there to remember to bring your bug spray, bring your sunscreen, especially if parking's a fair ways away. You wouldn't want to leave your sunscreen in your car at in Florida, where it took 20, 30 minutes to get back to your car because of the shuttle system, that type of thing. And it's also a nice idea to bring extra batteries. I've been a hero to a couple of cachers a couple times because I had extra batteries in my pack, and they ran out of batteries, that pair of double A's, and so I was able to give them some and basically get them back up and running geocaching for the day, and they were very grateful. So just kind of that type of thing kind of just adds to the kind of group effort aspects of events.
Definitely. And remember, that you may not be able to get to your car. So whatever you're bringing along for the day, make sure you can take it in something you can carry. So now's not the time to go out and buy a new backpack and wear it that day and see if you like it. Because, it could be a 10, 15-hour day. But wear something you're comfortable with. Make sure you bring plenty of water. The geo wood stocks, and that's typically what we're talking about here, tend to be in very remote locations. So there may not be running water on the premises, there may not be drinking fountains, and there may not be restaurants or convenience stores nearby. So anything you think you may need, plan on that you're not going to have water, you're not going to have food, and you're, not going to have a plug to charge up that phone or GPS.
Well, you mentioned the convenience stores and such like that. That is a very, very good point. Typically, these events that are moving around, like Geo Woodstock, the businesses around it tend to underestimate the volume of people coming through, and it's not uncommon that I've seen by like 11 o'clock in the morning that they'll have no water available and they'll be low on the beverages and this kind of thing. So that is something that is really important to keep in mind, is bring your own water. Like anything else, you don't really want to overpack the water because it is quite heavy and you have to carry that around all day. But if you can get back to your car, leave some in the car just in case, and make sure that you're planning to not be able to get anything from those stores, because the likelihood is they've underestimated the crowds.
Yeah, exactly. Now, Dave, we've been very narcissistic in talking just about ourselves, but at the last Geo Woodstock, you brought your family and children.
Yes.
So that brings up a whole new level of, what do you have to bring? What do you pack for kids?
Yeah, and just for people, just for reference for the kids we're talking about, I have a 5-year-old boy and a 2.5-year-old daughter. So we're talking very, very young kids. With the kids, you need, bring, if they're in diapers, bring extra diapers. You have to think ahead. Nap times become a factor. Where are you going to be when they're ready for nap times? Exactly. We could all use a nap. So my wife, who luckily is not a geocacher, so she's not quite so.
Luckily.
Well, it works out really well because she doesn't really care about the geocaching things, but she likes to go on the adventure. So if she misses out on finding a find, she's not worried about it, but she still kind of gets the experience. So she often ends up being A, the driver, and I'm the navigator, and B, she's happy taking the kids off to a park while I go finish geocaching. So if you can find a non-geocaching spouse, that can also help.
Does it have to be your own?
Yeah, for this purposes, no.
Okay.
Yeah. But we bring kids out in the field. You have to remember that what their stamina levels are. Bring lots of snacks. Bring liquids that they're going to drink. I'm more than happy to down a bottle of water when I'm thirsty. Kids may want juice. And if you're bringing milk, you have to worry about keeping it cool. Bring extra diapers. Keep toys, if you can, but toys are tricky. Swag is another thing. I typically do not trade items when I go out geocaching by myself. It's just not a thing that I'm interested in, but the kids very much are. So making sure that they have things to trade when they're with you is a beneficial thing. And with kids, you also have to, like I said, you have to consider the downtimes. A 5-year-old's not going to be doing a power trail. It's just not going to happen. At least my 5-year-old's not going to be doing a power trail. So gearing the caching towards them that way, finding the bigger caches, the more interesting caches, and mixing the caching with other events. A lot of mega events actually are starting to have kids activities. which can be very beneficial. I know the Geo Woodstock we were at, they had it was like 12 caches. They were like 5-gallon buckets that were brightly painted, and they were placed out in the park, in some of the wooded areas beside the park. And they weren't official geocaching.com caches, but they were. You still had GPS coordinates, and you still had the experience of finding them. And kids that young don't care about smileys. They don't care about stats. They just want to go out and have fun, right? So the fact that they're not smileys, who cares? But then I was actually Zeke, who's my 5-year-old. He actually found all 12 of them, which was pretty stamina for him, pretty good stamina for him. But those types of things. So take advantage of the kids programs, and just make sure whatever you're bringing with the kids to, if you're going to take them to a park and you're bringing extra diapers and a change of clothes and some snacks, just make sure that whatever that volume is, just make sure you have enough for the day.
So basically, you have 3 or 4 Sherpas following you.
If you can, Sherpas are great. Actually, that should be like a thing. They should have like a Sherpa level at Geo Woodstock where you get somebody just to follow you around.
Well, another important factor.
Woodstock, I'm going to do the Sherpa level.
Another important factor, though, is for those, to use your term, Dave, snuggle muggles, who might not want to do all the geocaching stuff, but want to do some of the other interesting activities. And a lot of the websites will have some of those activities kind of outlined. Not necessarily a whole lot of detail on it, but they'll kind of highlight, there's things like quilt shops, antique shops, there's this museum, there's this shopping center, that kind of thing, for those who might not be interested in the geocaching.
And That's right. Really like the quilt shops for nap time.
Yeah, especially for my wife. She's a quilter. Actually, my wife just popped a comment into the comment section. She's saying bubbles and sidewalk chalk are great to bring for little kids because they pack easy, and kids just love it. And it's not, and usually sidewalk chalk's fairly easy, and bubbles just disappear. So everyone loves a good bubble.
Well, it's a good way to get kids to practice their tagging skills.
Exactly.
Oh. And with the sidewalk chalk, you can do war driving.
Yes.
Yeah.
You can also get them to practice signing logs over and over again, just by signing the names on the chalk.
Oh, okay.
Which is important.
Important life skills, all learned through sidewalk chalk.
Yeah, those other events are also important. It's nice to know where the playgrounds are, for example. And the last year Woodstock was, I'm not sure if it was planned per se, but it was brilliantly placed right beside a Irish festival, which had rides and it had concerts and all these distractions. And I know my wife spent a good amount of time over on that side of things with the kids because it gave them, stuff to do that was really close and convenient. You wouldn't have that at every single event, but knowing those things, but it really helps to plan ahead to, especially when you have the kids, to know what the schedule is going to be. So, the one parent may want to take the kids off for, to go do something, and it's nice to know when you need to be back for something or those types of things. So planning ahead and having a really kind of good idea of what your day is going to kind of look like makes those things a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
Well, UDAC in the live Q&A is actually doing a perfect transition for us, talking about money. There's a lot of vendors at mega events, so you might need the cash.
Yeah, there's actually 2 points with the vendors. One, I think, is a lot of the event swag, the geocoins, the T-shirts, the whatevers. A lot of that stuff is sold ahead of time on the website because they actually use that as fundraising and to pay for putting on the event. Because almost all, I don't know of any geocaching events that are like for profit. They're all basically put on by the money raised by food and the sale of things. But so if you want those coins, those memento coins from the event itself, you probably want to buy it ahead of time, and usually you pick it up at the event, but it's part of your registration packet.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they'll have some leftovers there, but there's absolutely no guarantee it's going to be there. If you want those, buy ahead of time. And you'll usually get good deals if you buy a lot ahead of time as well. And most mega events do have vendors on site, and that's usually a great way to pick up the geocaching items. often a lot of coins and pins is often them, or cash advance is often there. And many other vendors, they're selling coins, they're selling path tags, they're selling geocaching supplies, pre-made caches, all those things that geocachers love, and they are for sale, and usually they're reasonably priced for the things that they are. But yeah, like you said, if you want to take advantage of that, bring cash. Sometimes they have credit card machines, but if you have problems getting data on your phone, they probably have problems getting data on your credit card machine. So it never hurts to bring cash. I mean, I always bring a little bit of cash with me anyways, because you never know when you're going to have to, pay your way out of an emergency or something. So
exactly. And
Yeah.
I was going to mention the exact same thing, Dave, is that they will accept credit cards, but data could be an issue, so bring cash. It's universal. You can spend it anywhere. One thing that you reminded me of, GX Proxy tends to be at a lot of these events.
Yes,
They
they do.
have a deal. If you buy a water bottle from them, you get free refills during the event.
Oh, really? I did not know that.
Yeah. So that that's a great way, and I know they sell a lot of those things, especially the warmer ones.
Some vendors will also do things like, and you checked it with your vendor, but if the vendor is going to be at a particular event that you're going to be at, many vendors will let you buy things from their website and then pick it up at the event, and they'll save you the shipping costs.
Right. You just have to pay for airfare.
Yeah.
Well, I was actually going to go the other way. Another great thing about the vendor tables is most of those are vendors that you'll see online, so you get a chance to actually see all of these items before you order. And even if it's something that maybe they have like a bison style container that you really like, but you wanted it in a different color, and they don't have it there, you can still usually order it on the website. And in many cases, they'll even take the order for you right there. So ask if there's something that's maybe a little different than what you see on the table, because they might have it in back. They might have it on the website, back at their warehouse or whatever. So make sure to peruse and check out all of the different offerings and get your hands on these different cool cache containers, because it is one of the best showcases you're going to find.
Exactly. Can I punt back up the stack to kids? One thing that I was reminded of is if you have kids, even if they're kind of outside of stroller age, like we'd no longer think of bringing a stroller with them. Sometimes at these events, it doesn't hurt to actually break out that stroller again and bring it with you, because it gives you two things. One, it gives you a chair that they can sit in when they get tired, because they're going to get tired. You don't want to carry them. And two, it's wheels that you can put all their kid gear in, so it's like a cart. So you're carrying that big bag of kids' diapers and extra snacks and stuff, plus your own geocaching gear, plus your own daily supplies. If you have a kid around and you have the stroller, you can use that stroller as a thing to push all that stuff around. So it just makes your life easier, and you can take those breaks, and you're not kind of stuck with all this stuff sitting there that you don't want to lug around anymore. It saved us several times some backache by doing that.
Now, Dave, I can't remember if it was you, but I've seen several geocachers with children pulling a wagon, a little red wagon that we all grew up with, and you can put the kids inside of it, you can stack it with gear, and it's really convenient. And the kids may even pull it from time to time, thinking it's fun.
Yeah, that wasn't me. We don't have a wagon, but it's very much a similar idea. Is bring something to lug the stuff with, because the kids aren't going to help you. So you got to do it all yourself, and sometimes you have to do it yourself while carrying the kids. So.
One of the things I saw that you just mentioned, bringing a chair. I just saw it this week. REI has one little 3-pound stool, collapses down to something the size of a water bottle, and it's very light and easy, and there's not a lot of places to sit at a lot of these events, and of course there's ground available, but that may not be the most convenient spot at the time. So just thought I'd toss that in there. Bring your own chair.
All right, I think we should probably wrap it up pretty quickly here, because we are going kind of long for one of our episodes. But
But we were having fun.
we're having so much fun, but I think what we really need to kind of stress for those newer mega event attendees is this isn't just like a meet and greet. You do want to do some homework before you actually go and get a feel for what the event is like so that you know what to expect and when you have to be there. If you're going to have to bring the appropriate stuff to play the games, make sure that you know that that's what you're doing. Bring the appropriate footwear, all this kind of stuff. Just make sure that you do that homework ahead of time so you don't go and end up totally surprised expecting maybe games and it's just, essentially a meet and greet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it doesn't take much usually. Just read the websites, read the schedule, and it usually give you a really good idea of what's going on. It can just take a few minutes to like an hour, but it really helps smooth the way and make it easier just to enjoy yourself when you get there because you're prepared and ready to go.
Well, Dave, you mentioned that schedule, and I really want to recommend people check the schedule like the day before the event as well. Even take a look at it days and months before even, but the day before, make sure you check that schedule to see if there were any changes, because many times you'll find things haven't worked out the way the people who were planning it had expected, and they've made some changes. Some of them quite substantial, and I've run into a number of people who have missed entire events because they were moved from the end of the day to the start of the day.
Or moved from one location to another. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, actually, that's another thing. All these side events, they're often in different locations as well. So knowing where those are will help you prepare for how much travel time you need to get between them and all that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and expect it to take longer than your GPS says it will because there is so much traffic in town, and all of those people are trying to do exactly the same thing that you are.
Right.
Well, I think that covers it. At least it gives us a good start for this conversation. So maybe we'll have to come back with attending Megas 2, or, what would be a lot more fun? What we need to attend a Giga event.
I'm with you, buddy.
Okay. So, speaking of Gigas, are you guys ready? Get an email ready, and Dave, you can do this too.
Yay!
And address it to GeoGearHeads at cachamaniacs.com with the subject Question 169. Now, in the body of your email, include your geocaching.com screen name and include the GC number for the first Giga event to be held. I hope this is going to be a lot easier than last week's question, but, I like a tough question. That's kind of the way I am. So, have that correct answer with your geocaching.com screen name to GeoGearHeads at cachamaniacs.com by March 25th at 6 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time. That's 9 p.m. Eastern, or even March 19th, 1 a.m. UTC. And your name to be entered into a drawing for that prize from coinsandpins.com.
Yeah, we want to thank our patrons, because if it weren't for their support, we wouldn't be able to do all these great prizes. We wouldn't even be able to keep these shows going. It's the patrons that do keep this happening, keep those shows coming. And without those support, without that support, we'd probably just, I don't know, Chris, maybe you and I would still be talking every Thursday night, but something tells me
we'd still be talking. We wouldn't have great giveaways.
Yeah, we wouldn't have the great giveaways. Yeah, and you might not get these audio downloads and all that kind of stuff.
And I'd have to pay you more to be on the show.
Exactly. So, see, the Patreons help all of us out, especially Chris.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
But yeah, we really do appreciate the support. If you feel that you're getting some value out of the show, we really would appreciate it if you became a patron and just give us a couple of bucks a month. That's all it takes to help support the show. And we do have some great bonus material in there. We have a hangout coming up on Tuesday the 24th, so patrons, make sure that you're marking your calendars to join us on Tuesday the 24th. The information is on the Patreon website. But if you do want to join us, you can still get in on that hangout on the 24th. Just head over to our website and click on the Patreon link for more.
For less than a latte a month, you can help bring great geocaching content. No. Okay, so upcoming. Sorry, I had to do that. It's our public service announcement. Okay, so March 26th, that's just next week. We're going to talk Geo Woodstock 13. April 12th, we're talking about, April 2nd. I just threw in an extra number there. We're talking about foolish cachers, and I'm going to decide who that is, just to let you know. April 9th, we're talking with Puzzler 26. April 16th, we're talking about mass transit caching. April 23rd, kayaking. That's going to be a great episode.
Check the Cachemaniacs website at cachemaniacs.com for more on the GeoGearHeads, including show notes for this and all our episodes. We love hearing from our listeners, so leave us feedback by calling 206-350-3647, by emailing geogearheads at cachemaniacs.com, or through social media. Your support helps keep the Cachemaniacs shows coming. Please consider becoming a patron through the link on our website to support the Cachemaniacs shows. GeoGearHeads is produced by Christoph Hour and Daryl Wattenberg. This show is copyright 2015 by Daryl Wattenberg, all rights reserved.